Tales from Azeroth. As always here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go through a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft, so grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. Today we're going to be going over the weekly news in WoW and what's been happening in the past, few weeks since I last did the WoW news. And we're going to be covering all bases, but it's going to be the main things. I'm not going to break every single little piece down, but give you a sort of variety and overview of what has been happening. But as always, we have the weekly stuff to get through. So we got the world bosses for this week on Nurgash, Muckformed and Morgeth. Go grab your anima and grab your potential conduits and stuff like that. The brawl for this week is Classic Ashran. This is Ashran where you have to kill the enemy faction leader, and it doesn't have reinforcements, it's just forever ongoing, so you can stay in there for as long as you want, or until you kill the opposing faction or they kill yours. It's that simple. We have a Legion Time Walking still up, so you can continue to do the Mage Tower over Christmas, and you can continue to do Legion Time Walking dungeons to pick up some, nice pieces of gear for your alt characters. And we also have the Feast of Winter Veil that is still ongoing, to celebrate Christmas and stuff like that. That will be going on until about the new year, I believe 1 or 2 days into the new year. So definitely do everything that you can with the Time Walking and the Winter Veil, because they will not be around for much longer. Our question for the day, or question for the episode, is one that was sent in by a recently new viewer, and it reads as follows. I'm a bit newer to the game and have found Burning Crusade Classic more enjoyable rather than retail. I'm still at a low level, so what would you recommend as a route to get to level 70? So I usually have a specific route when going through Burning Crusade leveling. It's very much alliance dependent. Horde, it can vary, but most of the zones do have a Horde equivalent, so you can use this in a certain way and adapt it just to the Horde zones instead of the alliance zones that I might mention. But if you're going to start off, you obviously want to look towards a Westfall around level 10ish. You want to level in your starting zone, of course, up until level 10, and then you want to look towards Westfall or Darkshore, something like that. I would generally look towards Westfall because I stick on the Eastern Kingdoms continent, as there is a lot more easier access quests for Alliance. I would say that it's easier access for the Horde on Kalimdor, so definitely make sure that you head on over to there if you are a Horde character. But if you're Alliance, I would recommend Westfall, and then you move on to Red Ridge, move down towards Duskwood, and then you're at a weird sort of awkward level, around level 28, and you don't necessarily want to head into Stranglethorn Vale just yet, so you kind of want to complete as much as you can in these sort of level ranges. You can go up towards Wetlands, where there will be a couple quests that you can do up there and get yourself to the level 30 mark. When you hit the level 30 mark, you can head down to the north of Stranglethorn, and there is a lot of quests to pick up there and to utilise the amount of mob killing that you can do in this zone. Now, Stranglethorn can take you upwards to level 45, but I generally leave around level 40 and head towards Tanaris, or Duskwella Marsh, I should say. Duskwella Marsh has a really good outpost in it, in the middle of the swamp, that gives loads of quests, very good XP, and then I will generally head down towards Tanaris and Gadgetzan, where you can, pick up loads of different quests, pick up the Zul'Farrak quests, do a dungeon, hop in there and stuff like that. This will generally bring you around to the level 45 to 50 mark. If you're at the higher level mark, like the level 50, you can hop into Ungora Crater. If you're at the level 40 mark, I would very much recommend something like the Hinterlands for you, and then move on to Ungora Crater. after Ungoro Crater, I would recommend going into Eastern. Is it Eastern? No, it's Western Plaguelands, and then Eastern Plaguelands after that. That is to get you to level 60, but pushing on through that is very simple because the leveling in Burning Crusade is a lot more streamlined. So it will be Hellfire Peninsula, it will be Zangarmarsh, Terakar Forest, Nagrand, Blades Edge Mountains, and then either Netherstorm or Shadowmoon, dependent on your preference, to be honest. So this is my sort of route when going through leveling in Burning Crusade. You can mix it up a bit and do some stuff on Kalimdor and stuff like that. You can hop over there, do a few quests if you're stuck within a certain leveling range. But I definitely think that this is the route that I stick by when I do make a new character in Burning Crusade. And I find it a very comfortable route, and I don't necessarily have to go out of my way far too often to find extra levels just randomly and stuff like that. It's usually when you're going to hit another 10 mark in that regard, so level 28 to 30, level 38 to 40, 48 to 50, that sort of mark, where you might be struggling for some XP and stuff like that, where you might have to scrounge about and everything. But this is generally a nice and easy way to get to the level that you want to be at, and very quickly. It's very efficient, I feel. Other people might have different routes, but this again is my route, and one that I've sort of gotten better at and adapted more and more throughout my years of playing WoW. So I definitely hope that this sort of route will give you an idea of how to plan your own route, or just do the route that I suggested right there. But let's get straight into the news. So what we're going to be looking at first is the Season of Mastery. And there's nothing too much crazy about it. But Season of Mastery Phase 2 has dropped. And it dropped on the 16th of December. And what was in Phase 2 of Season of Mastery was something very simple. It is the world bosses of WoW Classic. And them being Lord Kazakh and Azagos. So Lord Kazakh is a world boss in the Blasted Lands, and you can get an Eye of Shadow from the elite demons that surround him, and you will be guaranteed an Eye of Shadow from Kazakh if you kill him. Eye of Shadow, of course, is used for the priest quest for Benediction and Anathema, and it's a nice easy way to just farm some of these mobs. You'll need a group for these elites because they do hit very hard, and you will need a 40-man group to take down Lord Kazakh. And it's in a very weird place, I'm not going to lie. It's in a very obscure place that you wouldn't necessarily look. You'd accidentally run into the elite mobs and probably get yourself killed, not going to lie. So definitely keep an eye out. But Kazakh and Azagos is a blue dragon, and he resides in Ajara. And what he can drop is the Sinew. And what the Sinew is for hunters. And this is to make your Rockdalar bow. This is something that has a low chance to drop from the elite blue dragons, but is also guaranteed to drop from Azagos. So if you're a priest, you're going to be looking at doing Lord Kazakh a lot more. And if you're a hunter, probably Azagos a lot more so. Now, they have also added that Phase 3 content, such as which includes Blackwing Lair and Dark Moonfair, that rhymed, is currently planned for early February, and they haven't released any more details on that. That is just that when they are planning to release the next patch. So hopefully they go along with it. I am very curious to see what happens when Season of Mastery gets to its finale, which is Naxxramas. I'm very interested to see if they add more content to it, and if so, what content it will be and how it will affect the game, because Classic is a whole different type of balancing, pretty much, in terms of it's not balanced at all. It's very not balanced at all. There are some classes that are just generally better than others, and I think that they're trying to balance it with stuff like debuff limits being taken away, because it allows warlocks to put on all of their curses and stuff like that. It allows hunters to use Serpent Sting. It won't do much for them, but it allows them to use Serpent Sting. It allows so many more things, and you can potentially, stack up loads of warlocks and just have 2 million curses on this one boss. So we'll see, but I'm really hope that they do something special with it, because otherwise it does have a date where it will end. And that's the same as Burning Crusade Classic. It does have a date where it will end, and this is something that you do not want. You want your MMOs to carry on and keep evolving and, changing, because it does have a player base that is alive, and this player base does want to see change whenever possible. So, moving on to the 9.2 PTR build. This is stuff that was that is on the 9.2 PTR right now, and it's just a few class changes and more updates on character customization, stuff like that. But what you're looking at is mostly, I forget what it is, class tuning and stuff like that, and a few other bits and bobs. But we're starting with characters. So they have added 3 new Night Elf male face options. And yeah, it's kind of it. The thing that they added was basically they have a less aggressive mouth. It's more natural, because their mouth, when in some of the customizations, their mouth would be very much like an M shape, like a McDonald's. So you'd see at the tip of the M's, the top of the M's, you would see their lips been parted, and you can see their teeth and stuff. It's just more natural and more smoothed out, and it's not an M. It's an actual, a resting lip. It's something. It's more of a downturned face. It's nothing too major. It just makes it look more natural, which is good. Class changes, you have Druid, and you have, more specifically, I forgot the Covenant, Venthyr Druid. So Sinful Hysteria, which is the Venthyr power, now increases the duration of Ravenous Frenzy by 0.1 second, and this is instead of 0.2 seconds, and you will not be overcome by frenzy for 3 seconds after it ends. It was 5 seconds, so this is a massive nerf. This is an insane nerf to Venthyr Druids, and this is mainly because they're having a lot of spotlight in Mythic Plus content and raids. With the legendary that you have here, you could pretty much keep Ravenous Frenzy going for a very long time, a minute sort of time period you're looking at. If you've popped PI on you've got heroism, you can really pump out some crazy numbers with this legendary and this Covenant. So I can understand the nerf, but this really hits it hard. The application is where people wanted it. The overcome by frenzy isn't necessarily the worst thing, but the application, only 0.1 seconds added instead of 0.2, will kill this off, because you're having to double the amount of spells just to, keep up with what you originally had. Now, I can understand this in a raid scenario, because you've got so many heroisms and stuff like that. I can understand this in some Mythic Plus groups, but you would have to build the Mythic Plus group around the Balanced Druid, because you've only got 5 people. If you want a PI, you're going to need a Priest. If you want a Heroism, which you always will, you're going to need a Hunter, Shaman, Mage, whatever. And it requires a lot. It requires the entire team to pump stuff into this Druid, and the Druid still needs to ramp up. Compared to raiding, where the Druid has so much time to ramp up its damage because of the raid boss, that you can keep this going for minutes, whereas Mythic Plus content might be over in 30 seconds, some bosses, in some cases. So I think it's been hit too much, and I think you could keep it in its original version for Mythic Plus, maybe just have the nerf for raiding. I think that'll be more than enough for this legendary to not be as potent in a mythic or whatever raiding scenario, because Boomkins were going a bit crazy with this, not gonna lie. For Priest, you have the set bonuses. Now, these aren't set in stone. They are very much been looked at, and this is, one of the latest ones to come out. So, for Shadow, you have the two-piece bonus that has been reworked, and you have a 0.8% chance per insanity spent on damaging abilities to trigger Dark Thought. And your 4-set bonus is consuming a Dark Thought causes your shadow to animate, following you and dealing 3,715 damage over 8 seconds to all enemies within 10 yards of your target. Now, this can be good because if you're very lucky, you can do a huge amount of AoE damage. I'm not gonna lie, if you've stacked up, 30 mobs, and you're getting a dot on them for 3,700 damage over 8 seconds, that's going to really tick and really increase your AoE potential. And this is what I think Shadow Priest needed. They needed a bit more AoE potential. Their single target is very good, very clean, and their utility is off the charts, but they needed that AoE in terms of maybe Mythic Plus and stuff like that. So I can see why they're adding this as a 4-set piece, but I think some other priests might just want, some raw damage like a Void Torrent or something like that, even more. But we'll see how this performs. For Shaman, you've got quite a few changes for every single Shaman spec. Nope. For Elemental and Enhancement, Restoration is not being touched. So a lot of this is to do with the conduits. So Elemental Conduit now also reduces the cooldown of Chain Harvest, which is your Venthir ability, by 1 second when Flame Shock critically strikes. This is good, this is a new one, and this basically means that your Chain Harvest is up more frequently, depending on how much your Flame Shock is critting. So this could be good. They might just need to keep an eye on it. It depends how much Flame Shock ticks for, how often, stuff like that, but I don't see this being overly overpowered, to be honest. I think it might be in a good place, and they can obviously tweak it from here. Your Flame Shock now has a target cap of 6, so you can apply it to 6 targets. This is for the more PvE orientated shamans. Your Frost Shock damage is increased by 40%. This is just baseline because Frost Shock was you could just brush it aside. Its damage is very much used for its utility in terms of the slow. Unruly Winds, which is a conduit, has a chance to trigger is now 15% to 50% base on the item level. It was 20% to 35%. So 15% at the very lowest item level is meh, but up to 50% is really high. So Unruly Winds is sort of, I believe it's Doom Winds conduit, and it's not a bad sort of play style, and this might help it out quite a bit. Magma Fist conduit, additional critical strike chance is now 12% to 37% based on the item level. It was 15% to 25%. Again, at its highest item level, you're getting an extra 12% crit chance, which is really good. Focus Lightning damage or healing is increased, is now, or healing increase is now 5 to 12% base item. It was 1 to 4.5. That's insane. So the lowest item level that you can get for this conduit is giving you a higher damage and healing increase than the highest conduit item level before this buff. That's absolutely insane. So if you did have this conduit, you're going from 4.5% to 12% if you had the highest item level of it, which is a nice jump. That is a very nice jump. Chilled to the Core, chance to trigger is now 30 to 72% based on the item level. It was 21 to 35. Again, this isn't going to break the game, I don't think. It's just very nice to possibly make Shaman switch it up. Elemental conduits and talents. So for Elemental, Ice Fury talent now causes your next 4 Frost Shocks to deal 225% increased damage, was 300. Your Fire Elemental has had the mana cost of its abilities reduced by 90% and should no longer run out of mana. I can see this being a problem in PvE because when the Fire Elemental runs out of mana, he's kind of useless. It's one of them things. It's kind of like having a Water Elemental in Burning Crusade. If they run out of mana, they're just useless. They're just going to follow the target and not do anything. So I can understand this being a change, and this should be a very nice quality of life one that some shamans in PvE would probably notice. For enhancement, if you Lava Lash a target that has a Flame Shock on them, Lava Lash will now spread Flame Shock up to 3 nearby enemies in an 8-yard radius. If all enemies in the area are already affected with Flame Shock, it will refresh the duration of Flame Shock instead. Now this is a big change. This is a very big change. This allows so much cleave to happen for the enhancement shaman, either in PvE or PvP. You can put a enhancement shaman with a Death Knight to sort of cleave them down, get the procs, with the conduit that allows for, you know, your chain harvest to be reduced when Flame Shock crits. You can be pumping out so many chain harvests with this, and that could be a very nice combo, to be honest, going into 9.2. So definitely keep an eye out for that. It is very, very potent when paired with the right conduit. Your feral spirits no longer show up under the unit frame totem timer slots. This is to prevent too many spirits in conjunction with the other summons overflowing these slots and despawning the spirits prematurely. That's unfortunate. So this is just a nice quality of life change. It is stupid that this is even a thing. It's good that it's been addressed now, though. Your Ice Strike talent and Sundering talent can now properly cause the Flame Tongue weapon damage effect. So it was just a numbers problem. Very nice and simple. Your Ice Strike and Sundering are no longer able to be used while disarmed. Okay, so this is a small nerf. So if you understand the Sundering ability, it is a stun where they generate some maelstrom and stuff like that. It's only used in PvP, most likely, I believe. But if you are very good with your disarms in PvE, or I should say PvP, then this is one to note against shamans, that they can't use these two abilities now when they are disarmed. So that's very good to note. For warlocks, the summon Succubus and Incubus are now available on the PTR. So obviously the Incubus is one that is being added to the PTR, and you can choose to summon each, or either the Succubus or the Incubus, or just a random one every time that you do summon your Succubus or Incubus, and it chooses for you. It's very simple. Seduction, your pet ability, now causes the target to slowly walk towards the demon. It now also has a chance to break on damage taken rather than always breaking on the first instance of damage. So it's like a fear, which is kind of staying with how warlock spells work, I guess. And the Whiplash pet ability now also causes the enemies to take a 1% increased damage from the Succubus or Incubus each time it strikes, stacking up to 10 times, and its duration increased to 15 seconds, was 10 seconds. So they're looking to push the Succubus and Incubus into more PvP and more just streamlined gaming rather than the Fell Hunter. I don't think this will do it. I think the Fell Hunter is very much the best one to sacrifice or to keep as a pet. So I think they would need a bit more of a change, to be honest. The Succubus can be good, but the Fell Hunter is just a lot more dominant in most of the matchups, to be honest. For Warrior, you have the 2-set bonus as well, and this is the or now increases Colossus's smash debuff by 5%, was 10%. And this makes sense because you're already dealing 30% increased damage with Colossal Smash, so an extra 5% makes it 35. It's still a nice DPS increase, but 40% is quite a lot, I'm not going to lie. And the 4 set piece is your strength increase per stack is now 2%, was 4%, and stacks up to 4 times, was 5 times. So if you pair the 4 set piece with the 10% Colossus Smash, you could get an insane amount of DPS out, and you probably don't want that. Warriors would become very mainstream. They are very good as it is in PvE and PvP, but this would kind of push it over the top, I feel. For Dungeons and Raids, you have the new raid that has opened up, and they're starting to test heroic encounters. And they have completed the heroic encounters for Anduin and the ones before Anduin. They have yet to test the last 3 bosses, including the jailer fight. And I don't know if they actually will test it on the PTR. I imagine they will, very briefly though. I imagine they want to just to check if there's any major bugs with regards to the fight, but I don't think they would want to spoil the fight in its entirety. So I really hope that they don't let people just, do the fight as its entirety. I hope that they only get to show very small snippets of it for like maybe an hour or two live on the PTR, and then they take the PTR down to see if there was any bugs that were found within these fights. So the heroic testing has been done. It will follow with mythic testing, I would have thought, up to Anduin, and then they will look at the last 3 bosses. And for player versus player, the Deathbolt talent now deals its damage over 3 seconds. It was immediate damage. This periodic effect cannot be dispelled. This is insane. This kills Affliction Warlocks very badly. So Affliction Warlocks, with Deathbolt, it took all of your damage over time spells off of the target, and it put them all into this one bolt, hence a Deathbolt. And it basically was a massive hit. If you have 8 debuffs on you, all damage over time, it will accumulate all of the damage that it would have done and put it into this one big bolt. And it hit like a dump truck, I'm not going to lie. I was playing arenas earlier, like today. My Paladin healer went from 88% to 0% in one death bolt. It was hilarious. We still won the game because we cross-killed as well. We killed their priest and stuff, and then I managed to get a res off on our healer. But it was insane. I literally saw the death bolt flying. I checked my healer's health, 88%, and then it's just 0. And I was like, whoa, that was insane. It hit for 44,000. And my druid, for a sort of comparison, I have 53,000 HP at 100%. So it hits for quite a lot. I'm not going to lie. So this is a big talent change. This is a massive talent change. There are some quests that have been added to the PTR. Chapters 6 and 7 are available on there now for those to test. And Torghast, you have just a Shaman Anima Power. Heart of the Deathseer no longer causes increased flame shock spreading. As well as Zereth Mortis, more treasures have been added for you guys to discover. So a lot of stuff has been happening on the PTR for both Burning Crusade and retail. Burning Crusade, I know, has also started their PTR. A lot of Illidan kills have been happening. Battle for Mount Hyjals, they've been testing a lot of these 2 raids. You also have tier sets that they're constantly changing on the retail PTR, which is really nice. They're trying to get them to work. Some of them, they're doing some outlandish things and then bringing it back and changing it, chopping and changing it because people didn't like it. It was too overtuned, it was too weak, stuff like that. So it's really good that they're really trying stuff on the PTR, as that is what it is for. The bosses, again, they're up to the heroic of Anduin, and I imagine that they're going to start doing the mythic soon. And they still have the last 3 bosses to test however they want. Now, it might be internal testing, it might be on the PTR, but I imagine they're going to throw it up on the PTR for a very small amount of time, just to see if there's any major bugs and stuff like that. But the way that these PTRs are shaping up, within the new year we'll get some announcements of when it might drop. I imagine around mid-Jan we will know when 9.2 comes out, when Phase 3 is happening. I believe Phase 3 might have a date, but I'm not too sure. I can't quite remember if it does or not. But it's going to be good. Going into the new year with WoW, we're going to get some content, and that's really good because we've been starved of it in 2021. We went through 8 months without a patch in retail, and that's not healthy for the game at all in any state that it's in. No matter if it's in its best patch throughout its entire history, you cannot stay on the same patch for 8 months. It's not fair on your consumers, and it's just not fair to anyone who play and love the game, even the people who work on the game and who put real effort and dedication into it. It's not fair on them because it's a reflection of how, on how we might view them. We might think that they're lazy when they've actually been trying really hard to push certain ideas to, the people higher up. I know it's a mess at Blizzard right now, obviously, but a lot of people do love the game who work at Blizzard, and it isn't everyone at Blizzard that's, dealing with all of that stuff, you know what I mean, all of the legal stuff, and it's not good. But there are people who love the game and they want to see it flourish. That is what I think we've seen a lot of improvement during the late end of 2021 leading into 2022 with WoW, with more sort of communication, more patches, PTRs and stuff like that. So hopefully we'll get more WoW news soon. But for me, that is it this week. Thank you all very much for listening. Do check out everything down below. Patreon, check out the YouTube. The YouTube's been doing great recently, and I would highly recommend it. Doing a lot of Mage Tower stuff on there, just showing my my prowess at certain challenges and my failures. It's something. But thank you all very much for listening as always.